My name is David Sloan Wilson, and I'm delighted to be with you from a distance. Hello to Michelle and Marcelo, my good friends. And I'm here to talk about the inner and outer dimensions of happiness. I think that we can all agree that happiness has these two dimensions. It would be wrong if we were to be happy in our state of mind, no matter what the state of the world, or for the state of the world to be such that doesn't make us happy. So we can all agree that happiness has both an inner and an outer dimension. And the question becomes, how could we make sure that they are appropriately linked to each other? When we cultivate an inner state of happiness, we also often call this mindfulness training. And it comes in two versions, a spiritual version with many, many different varieties, and a scientific version based on something called contextual behavioral science. And the point that I'm trying to make is that there is both a science and art of mindfulness, of inner happiness. And here's an example from a study in which the experiment involved people reading a book on mindfulness-based training. And the graph shows that at the beginning, they're highly stressed. This is a general health questionnaire. These were teachers basically experiencing burnout in their work. And it was a randomized, waitlisted treatment. So what that means is that randomly half of the participants read the book. That's the first line there. And between pre and post, there was a big improvement in their well-being. And then the second line, that's the waitlisted treatment. They didn't read the book until later. And when they did, there was also a big improvement. So here's proof, basically, that it's possible to become more, um, um, enhance your well-being, in this case, simply by reading a book. But what I love about this study is the difference in the first line between post and follow-up. Now, they could have remained the same, they could have relapsed, but instead they got still better. So what this means is that by reading this book on mindfulness-based training, they internalize something and then continue to improve upon it on their own. And there's over 1,000 studies like this one demonstrating the science of mindfulness. It is truly possible to become more happy internally, even before we get to changing our physical environment. And so when we proceed to the environment and we ask the question, what is a happy environment? I think we could all agree on points such as the following: for the good of all, sustainable, for all living forms, not just humans. But it's not enough just to want it. We have to go beyond our good intentions. We must have good intentions, but we must go beyond them. And so this argues for the need for structure in our social lives. So we need to coordinate our activities. We especially need to prevent disruptive self-serving behaviors. And it's good to know that there's a science of coordination, just as there's a science of mindfulness. And it's summarized by this table over here, a list of what's called 8 core design principles. And I want you to imagine being in a social group, any kind of group. Think of a group that you know well. And imagine that this group first has a clear sense of identity and shared sense of purpose. It's doing something meaningful. Members know who they are, what they're doing. That there's an equitable distribution of benefits and resources you get in proportion to what you give. That decision-making is inclusive, that you're a part in the decisions that affect you. That there's a transparency of behavior, that we know what we've agreed upon to do. That there's graduated responding to helpful and unhelpful behavior, that you get praised for good behavior, rewarded for good behavior, and mildly sanctioned for unhelpful behavior, escalating as needed. That there's fast and fair conflict resolution, that you have the freedom and the authority to implement these core design principles, and finally, that you have appropriate relations with other groups that embody the same principles. So imagine a group like that, and I think that you'll agree that you would be very happy in that kind of group. Why? Because you could be giving and compassionate. You could act upon your good intentions to the fullest, and you know that your efforts would be both effective and would not be exploited. So this is the kind of structure that's needed for um, for a happy external environment linked to a happy internal environment. So this is the appropriate structure that provides that link, that critical link of our inner and outer happiness. I'd like to illustrate this now with a study of business groups. So here's two business philosophies. On the left, we have Milton Friedman and his shareholder value model. There is only one and only one social responsibility of a business, to maximize profits for its shareholders. So imagine a business that's based on that philosophy. And then imagine a business that's based on these core design principles, which is due largely to Elinor Ostrom, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2009. And ask yourself the question, which was the best business? Which business would function best in the business world and also would lead to the greatest happiness of the members of that business? So we've done research along those lines. We did a survey that asked participants to provide information on two groups that they knew well, one a workplace group, and then any other group of their choice. And we asked them how well the groups implemented those core design principles and also how well they functioned as groups with respect to trust, satisfaction, needs, cooperation, and commitment. And what the results showed was, in the first place, a strong correlation between the implementations of the core design principles and performance outcomes for all kinds of groups. So all groups need these core design principles. And also that on average, workplace groups were deficient in all 8 core design principles, with the largest deficits being local autonomy. Many people in their jobs can't do their jobs as they see fit. A sense of identity and purpose. Many people don't find much meaning in their jobs. And decision making. Many people are bossed around and basically they don't take part in the decisions that affect them. Now, so the take-home points here is that all groups need the core design principles, business groups no less than other kinds of groups, and that business groups, in part because they have been so influenced by the shareholder value model, are deficient in all 8 of these core design principles. Now, there are outstanding exceptions. And so there are business groups that do implement the core design principles. And as a result, not only do they perform well, but they make their members very happy indeed. Some of you might be aware of the conscious capitalism movement, also the B Corp movement. And I'd like to showcase one example of the conscious capitalism movement, a manufacturing firm in the American Midwest called Barry Waymiller. It's featured in this book, Everybody Matters, by Bob and Raj Sisodia. And this is an extraordinarily caring organization, and it functions exceedingly well as a business, and the people love working for it. So that's great. But what's really great is that this company has actually acquired over 140 other companies and transform their cultures as well. They don't like the word acquire, they like the word adoption, because that's closer to their philosophy of being truly caring. And so here we have a replicated experiment in the cultural evolution of happiness, replicated 140 times. And there's many other examples like it. Once you know what to look for, the evidence for the efficacy of these core design principles is all around us. And here I've listed 2 podcasts that I've done with Raj and Bob, and also the senior management of Barry Waymiller, which will provide the links for you. So that's what could be done at the level of a single group. It might be a business, it might be a school, it might be a neighborhood, it might be a church. That's how general these principles are. But to be truly happy, we have to go beyond that. And we have to basically enlarge the scope. And this concept of polycentric governance, I'm calling it polycentric happiness here, is As basically what it says is that life consists of many spheres of activity. Each sphere has an optimal scale, and good governance, this structure that I'm talking about, requires finding the optimal scale for each sphere and appropriately coordinating among the spheres. And these principles of governance are scale independent. So what's needed within groups is also needed between groups. So in order for us to be happy, it's not enough. It's not enough for us to be internally happy. It's not enough for us to be happy in our groups, our small groups, and our businesses. No, no, we have to be happy in this polycentric sense. Otherwise, then we'll be made unhappy by the events that take place at larger scale. So my take-home messages: first of all, happiness has an internal and an external dimension. There is a science of happiness in addition to an art. Appropriate structure is needed to link the internal and the external dimensions. Happiness must be polycentric. Clearly, you can see that evolving a happy polycentric world is a daunting task, but we do have the blueprint for getting it done. So that's the best I could do in a very brief presentation, but I think that this festival that we have, and I think is exactly what we should be doing and then acting upon. So thank you very much.